What's going on, guys? It is DigiWatchTCG coming to you with our first deck profile of the EX2 format, and that is our Mother D Reaper over here. So we're going to go over the cards, some of the matchups that are good and bad, and then some of the styles you can build this deck, other than the one I'm going to showcase. With that said, please like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts below on what you'd like to see next. So Mother D Reaper is our egg over here. You only need to play 4. You really don't need to play anything else, so this is what you play. And basically it has this amazing, crazy effect. This is basically why the deck is so good. First off, it can attack and it's unaffected by your opponent's card effects, so that is the trade-off. But every turn you can put a Searcher underneath it, and we'll get to what Searchers do in a second. And for every Searcher underneath it, you can reduce the cost of your cards with D Reaper in its traits to the field. So if I have a card that has a 5 cost to play, and I have, let's say, 2 sources underneath this, 2 Searchers underneath it, it actually can play for 3 cost. So it is very, very powerful, and that is basically how you facilitate the plays in your deck. So that is Mother D Reaper. You play 4 of it. The next card has no limit a limit up to 50, which is basically your whole deck, and that is the Searcher over here. This is the Searcher. There we go, focus. And basically what Searcher does is it's if you have no other, you can play 50 copies of this, like I said. I'm playing 17 because that's to fit all my ratios in. That's what I have to do. Basically, it can attack, but when you play it, it's you get to draw 1, and if you don't have another Searcher on the field, then you can you reduce the cost by 2. So this is actually a 1 cost. So usually the first play of the game, or most of the time the first play of the game, is to hard play the Searcher, leave your opponent at 1, and then just pass turn. With that, then you bring the Mother D Reaper over, you suck up the Searcher, and then you continue your plays. Either you play another Searcher, or you could play some of the other cards that we'll get to in a second. So that is the main thing over here. Searcher, again, you could play anything between 15 and 20, I would suggest, just for the consistency. 17 is where I landed, but it doesn't need to be 17, obviously. Next is personally one of my one of my favorite cards in this deck is Jerri. You play 4 of her. I believe this is the right ratio. So this is not on play. It's actually a main effect, which we don't see that many of. And also, before I get into anything further, I want to just say that all the D Reaper stuff has no levels. So decks against this, like Mastamon, that can blow up cards that have levels, do not trigger on these cards. Just a heads up about that. But Jerri, when it's on the field, you can suspend it and look at the top 5 cards, and if there's a Searcher there, you could put it directly under Mother, and then the rest go to bottom. So basically, you want to get Jerri's out, and if your opponent's smart, they're going to try to they should get rid of Jerri's quick, because Jerri's going to be able to get more and more copies of Searchers underneath the Mother D Reaper to facilitate more plays. Personally, I think that this is one of the most important cards in the deck, and so if your opponent is able to get rid of these, then they should, absolutely. So Jerri at 4, that's what it does. Next one is our Prime Searcher as well, is our Pendulum Feet. So you play 4 of these because it is a Searcher. You look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you add 1 Searcher and 1 card with D Reaper in his traits to your hand. So you could technically take 2 Searchers, or you could take a Searcher and like another card like Jerri and add it to your hand. And yeah, it's just a Searcher you have to play 4 of. Nothing else to say about that. So next one over here is 3 copies of Bubbles. Now Bubbles has basically, I'm not going to read it word for word, but it has the on play and the security effect. That's basically both the same, and that is when it hits in security, or when you play it, you can take 1 Searcher from your hand or on play and put it underneath your Mother D Reaper. So let's say you had a turn where you played 2 Searchers, or then that was just a pass turn. You can put that extra Searcher underneath on your opponent's turn if it gets hit in security. So it's an okay card. It's not the best card, personally. But again, you want to get to 7 or more under your Mother D Reaper as soon as possible. Next is a really good card, which I didn't realize how good it was until really playing against it, was the Palates Head, or Palates Head. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. But basically, it has another main effect. So keep in mind, Mother Reaper can reduce the cost of playing these cards from your hand, but basically what happens is you suspend it, and then you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon equal to or less than or equal to the DP of this card. Now, something I forgot to mention is that the Searcher has an inherited, in that on your turn, all of your Digimon with D Reaper in its traits gain 1000 DP. So the more Searchers you have underneath this, the greater the DP of this card is, which means the greater DP you can delete on your opponent's side of the field. So 3 of these I think is fine, unless something else comes out that's super oppressive. I think this is fine. This is the one that your opponent's probably going to want to get rid of as soon as possible as well. So if you're playing against this deck as a weakness, I would personally try to go for Palates Head and Jerri to get rid of, because those are the main effects. But speaking of like oppressive cards, we have 4 Gatekeepers. This card is just too good. It has a few effects to talk about. First off, if it's hit in security, it comes out. Secondly, when it is played, either from security or from just hard playing it, you recover 1. And then when your Mother D Reaper has 6 or more sources underneath it, it puts a -1 security to all your opponent's Digimon on their side of the field, and that is something that's a permanent effect. So if you are able to get 2 of these on the field, your opponent's not going to be able to swing into them until they clear the Gatekeepers, which is very, very scary, and that's what really is making this deck very powerful, is the fact that Gatekeeper oppresses your opponent and doesn't allow them to kind of swing when they have it. Even if you unsuspend and you it still doesn't matter. It's still a new attack, so it still gets a -1 security. The only reason it would not is if you had something like the security Greymon underneath the Black War Greymon, where it gets additional security checks, so then you would be able to do a security check. So it is very, very impressive, very powerful. 4 of, definitely. Going into our last one, and I want to talk about a quick errata about this card, because not a lot of people know about it, is Reaper. Now I'm playing 3 because this is your win con, but this deck searches and draws so much that you're eventually going to pull in, so 4 I feel is unnecessary. So basically what it has is Rush, and then it has an effect that if you have 7 or more Searchers underneath the Mother D Reaper, you can send 7 to the trash to be able to play this for free. Now, there was an errata, because this card technically says reduce the play cost to 0. It's actually set the play cost to 0. That is it's just a typo or something like that came over from Japan. So technically, this card is not a reduction. So cards like Psychmon that say that you cannot reduce the play cost of Digimon will not affect this card. It will affect everything else, but not necessarily Reaper. And then what Reaper has the ability to do is when it declares an attack, you could put 2 Searchers underneath it from the trash to unsuspend it. So if I swung into security for 15, I'm going to put 2 underneath it, unsuspend it, and it's going to go up to 17, and it's going to be unsuspended and hit for 17. And you can continuously do that, adding more Searchers underneath it in order to basically attack for game. And that is really the win con of the deck, is being able to Reaper your opponent and be able to like just chip them away. But basically, that's how this deck functions. That's the big win con of this deck. So Reaper here. We're going to go into a few of the options now. This is a red variant of the deck, which is what I personally think is one of the better versions, but I do recognize there's a yellow version that is as well. And you play 4 Tamers. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter what. I have 4 red Marcus, so I'm going to just say Marcus, but it could be Hero. A lot of people play the Hero because I think it's just a more recent card. But basically, you can play any red Tamer, and just to have a red source. It's really just to have a red source for the option cards, and that's why you play it here. Then we play 4 Crimson Blaze, because there are cards like Mastamon, there are cards like Imperial, and Crimson Blaze just clears the field if they're not careful, and it stops them from expanding their plays, being able to play Dragon Mode, or if you're playing Mastamon, being able to play from security. So this is a very, very powerful card. This might be changed out for some other cards. Personally, I'm not exactly sure yet the exact ratio, but I think 4 Crimson Blaze is good. But this card is really good as well. This is a new card from EX2 called Fireball. Now, I'm playing 2 copies of it. Basically, what it says is delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 3,000 DP or less. But if you don't, then you draw 2 cards. And so you're really kind of using this for that, either to clear like something like Psychmon if they do have a Psychmon on field, or you're trying to draw 2 so you can get to your future pieces. So that is just why you play this one over here, Fireball. Now I might take a Crimson Blaze and put another Fireball, because just drawing cards is just really powerful. It's a pot of greed on legs, so why wouldn't you want to play more? And then the other win con technically in this deck is playing 2 copies of Delicate Plan. So Delicate Plan basically says that when you attack security, options can activate. So cards that are heavy removal cards like Wyvern's Breath or Chaos Degrade basically do not activate if I'm swinging into it. So that is this is the reason why red is kind of played as a base, is because you can play 1 cost, play the Reaper for free, play the 1 cost, and then swing multiple checks, not having to worry about Digimon or any options. The only cards would activate would be Tamers. So that is the deck profile. Now, I'll talk about just a little bit of a variation of what certain... there's another version of this deck, which I don't have the card next to me right now, but there is yellow cards. There's a yellow version of the deck where you play yellow base. And with the yellow base, you're looking to kind of control the board more. So you're playing stuff like reinforcements of... I think it's called Reinforcing Memory Boost. You play the yellow there. You play Karis to recover, because when you're recovering, you gain additional memory, so you could continue your plays a little bit more. You can play Spiral Masquerade, because you do go wide on this board, and if you're playing a yellow base, it can clear a lot of your opponent's board, especially in a mirror match. It can really damage their entire board. There's just a few cards like that you could play instead of the red base, and you would play stuff like Kari, TK Kari to gain additional memory, just to continue your plays more and more. But keep in mind that D-Reaper only works with reducing 1 card per turn, other than some of the other effects that have its own reduction effects, but like Searcher has its own reduction effect. So just something to keep them out. Now, in terms of matchups, what you have in terms of matchups here, I think I mentioned a few of them before. Against stuff like Imperial Digimon, Blackrock Greymon is going to be a little bit more of a struggle, because Blackrock Greymon can technically run over the Mother D-Reaper if it's strong enough. It also can play cards in the security that can delete or de-digivolve, which is really powerful. Like, you can digivolve and then just get rid of a 3,000 DP card, and then swing over your opponent's cards. Additionally, Imperial Digimon is super aggro, so you're able to just swing and do multiple checks to your opponent's security, and potentially may be able to just be able to win against them that way over before Mother D-Ripper can be filled up. You also have some good bad matchups against the D-Reaper. Some bad matchups you can say sometimes is Mastamon, because like I said before, Mastamon concentrates on deletion of levels, and the problem is that with levels activated, it doesn't necessarily it can't delete anything. Although it does have some good options to get rid of stuff, most of the time you don't want to pass turn and just like be able to have them just continue to swing at security. Playing something like a Chaos Degrade is 8 cost, so that's passing a lot of memory to your opponent. So it's just something to keep in mind. I played Mastamon against this deck as the first matchup I ever had against D-Reaper, and even though there were a few misplays made, the deck really... It had a really hard time. I think the most I ever got him to was 1 security left, because of Gatekeeper. He had 2 Gatekeepers on the field, I believe, and I was just able to swing over 1. The other one just didn't allow any of my... I had like 6-7 Digimon just ready to swing as a security, and I couldn't get rid of it. So that's something to keep in mind about the D-Reaper archetype. They don't like to delete anything until they're ready to swing for game. Just keep it in mind. Additionally, there is one other thing I will mention is Yellow Hybrid is now right now like kind of an even matchup with it, because Yellow Hybrid can delete a lot of Digimon on the field with Rapidmon and being able to DP reduce stuff. However, I believe that it's still a little bit weaker than D Reaper right now. I'm not exactly sure how much it is less than, but it is a very powerful engine. So right now, I'd say they're both about almost the same level, depending on the player, and that really depends on player skill. There are a few other decks that are rogue that may do well against this deck, but it is a very threatening and scary deck, and it is something that we can definitely see for the rest of BT8 meta. Once we get to BT9, we don't see as much of this, but this is my deck profile. I hope you liked it. Please like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts below on what you'd like to see next. Thank you again, and have a great day.